Hello, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Uh, Again, before we get started, just some housekeeping items so the session kind of runs somewhat smoothly. We're recording today's session, so as a reminder, again, I'll post this video on our Lean YouTube page afterwards. So keep your cameras turned off. I'll also be muting everyone's microphones so the audio is nice and clean, so we don't hear, someone's cat meowing in the background. And if you'd like to speak later, again, I have to keep saying, don't forget to unmute yourself before talking. And if you wanted to, turn your camera on as well too. I'll also be monitoring the questions in the chat as they come in, and I'll give some responses to them, but I'll use that as a cue for questions. Or if you wanted again to ask it verbally in front of the camera, just use the hands up feature, and we'll use that as a Kanban or a signal to bring any questions to the front in the flow at the right time. So we'll get into introductions. My name is Avel Espiritu. I'm part of the Lean YEG community. And for anyone new to this group, Lean YEG is Edmonton's lean community of practice. We're a volunteer group focused on sharing practical ideas across architecture, engineering, construction, and everything in between. We are aligned with the LDCC, the Lean Design and Construction Canada, and our intent is quite simple. Learn together, share what works, and continue to strengthen how we deliver work in our region, especially in the Edmonton area. So on these sessions, we always try to bring forward examples that are grounded in real work, not just theory, not best case scenarios, but kind of what actually happens on projects. And today is a really good example of that. We're looking at something that shows up a lot in our jobs where something gets added with the best of intentions, and over time it starts to create complexity. It slows things down and pulls away and detracts from flow. And then you're like, oh, what did I just say yes to? And the perspective you're going to hear from today is from a team that's actively working in the construction space. So they support projects through specialized services like finishing, deficiency management, closeout work, and they're stepping into projects at critical stages where coordination, timing, and flow is mission critical. So they've also engaged in lean training too as well. So they're inwardly looking at how to improve their own processes, reduce friction, and better support the projects that they're a part of. What you're going to hear today again is not an observation; it's a reflection about applying lean thinking directly into the work, and it will be presented by Ideal Contract Services, and I'll turn it over to them.
Cool. Thanks, Abel. I'm Sarah. I have to apologize. I am super duper sick today, so I'm gonna lean on my team to talk a lot because this is slightly painful for me, but and I just woke up 5 minutes ago. But anyway, I'm really excited about this, and I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to talk about this project because it was really, really cool. At Ideal, we've done I bet you close to 30 or 40 major continuous improvement projects with our team. And this was one that involved a lot of people and a really scientific methodology of analysis. So I thought it was really cool to share with you guys. So level 5 taping. So this is us, the people that you're going to be hearing from today. Harley is one of Ideal's owners, and he's a lean black belt. Myself, also black belt. Aubrey is a project manager, and he has been a taper for, oh, sorry, Aubrey, I'm going to date you here. I think like close to 30 years. We're getting there.
You're in the right wheelhouse there.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry. I don't want to out you here, but he's a lean green belt. Ian is a superintendent, overseas taping as well, lean green belt. And Calvin, unfortunately, has not done lean training. He's a superintendent, so he wears suspenders instead of a belt. Sorry, Calvin.
No problem.
So, speaking of dating people, so quick overview of Ideal, just to give you guys a little background on what we do. We are a contractor in Edmonton. Primarily, we do commercial buildings, we do residential buildings. If you're curious about our work, just reach out to me. Happy to help, explain, and see if we can help you out. We do drywall, steel stud, insulation, painting, taping, ceilings, services, and custom work. Basically, if it involves a wall or a ceiling, we can do it. So that's kind of the basis of Ideal. And we're talking about taping today. We do some really cool stuff with taping. Over the years, we've done a lot of what I would call pretty standardized rectangle or box work. That would be like apartment units, or simple, living rooms or spec houses, that kind of stuff. But we also do a lot of really specialty things, and that's where we get into level 5 a lot of the time, is on some of the fancier work that we do. So I'm going to get Aubrey to step in here because he's a taping expert and he can explain kind of the levels for context here for anybody who is unaware. Aubrey?
Hey guys. Yeah, so as it's showing here, the level 1, that's just a standard fire tape to seal off the walls, prevent any airflow going through. So it's usually garages or skirting, like tops in units, any kind of walls that have to have fire rating, but they don't need a finish. Level 2 is like mechanical rooms. It's really just like kind of a fire tape with one coat on it. A level 3, it'd be 2 coats with a sand. Ceilings that are getting textured will usually get that. Level 4 is typically the finish that we do. So it's 3 coats. When you put the tape on, the first coat, you kind of fill in the bevel. And that'd be your first. And then you do a 10-inch coat and then a 12-inch coat. And you sand the whole thing out with the light and sponge when you're done. Prime it, do the light check, and it's ready for paint at that point. Level 5, that's when you do a full skim coat over the wall after you get it to the level 4. So the drywall face is it's a little bit rough compared to the finish on the mud. So the intent is to get the same kind of finish across the whole wall, so you don't see the 2 different transitions between the rough drywall and the smooth mud. So you get to the level 4, and then you skim coat out the whole wall to get it all one uniform finish. That's typically highlight areas, dark colored walls, that kind of stuff where you're going to have a lot of direct sunlight. That's usually when clients want to go towards the level 5, the higher end finish.
Awesome. And then we've got some visuals here if you wanted to add on anything here, but
yeah, that's just you got a new house, that's usually how your garage ends up looking, just a tape and spot screws so it's sealed up for the fire ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Level 2, I didn't have a picture of a mechanical room.
Yeah, so level 2, you just would see it typically about 10 inches wide. The mud coat would be on it, but you wouldn't sand it or anything. It's areas that you're not really going to be going into. Maybe maintenance guys will be looking at it or something. They don't really mind at that point. So yeah, and this is where you start getting into more of the finish. So level 3 is kind of typically a 2 coat and a quick little sand. So like I said, texture ceilings, you can do this. A painted wall, it wouldn't be acceptable for a painted wall. The joints would still flash on you and show up.
Just out of curiosity, sorry, this is behind tile too, right? Or do you go back?
Yeah, it depends. Some tile people don't want any mud on the board, so it doesn't bond properly, but sometimes they do want it leveled off. You just wouldn't be able to sand it if you're putting tile over top, or you'd have to do a prime coat to seal it because the dust won't bond with the mortar.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then this is the level finish. You can see how much wider the joints are here. So typically it's a 12-inch finish for beveled joints, and then the butt joints where the sheets meet up, you gotta go like 24 inches on those to get them leveled off. And that's pretty much, I'd say 90% of the work that we do would be a level 4 finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then here, like I said, highlight areas, you can see the picture on the right. They've got all those big windows coming through, so that whole wall we'd have to level 5 to get as smooth as possible. And then obviously the one on the left, this is somebody's pretty nice house, and they wanted to get it polished up there, so that'd get the level 5 finishes as well.
Yeah, that one I think I originally, that's a lottery house, and then all of the ceilings are level 5 for
Oh,
that
all the
exact
ceilings,
same reason. Yeah.
Nice.
So if you
Yeah,
don't
these
mind.
are a couple different ways that we went through. We tried all of these techniques to figure out what was the most efficient, what gave us the best finish. So the guy on the left there, he's spraying it. You go through, you spray if it's kind of like a liquid mud. And you just give it a light full sand after. The center one, you trowel the whole wall out with the mud, do a little skim coat right across it. And the roller applied, you roll the mud on with the roller, but you still got to go back and kind of wipe it down with the knife or a trowel after you get it all smooth. So there's the 3 different techniques that we tried here to see which one worked the best.
FYI, I think on YouTube, 90% of the videos you'll see on level 5 are all roller applied. Just a curiosity thing. Thanks, Aubrey. So Harley, I'd love to hear from you now why we started looking into level 5 and what the pain was that you were experiencing. Also, anytime I ask owners to comment on things that aren't working, for some reason I always think of Sam the Eagle, like with the angry face. So that's kind of...
I'll try my best with my eyebrows.
Yeah, thanks.
As we can see here, I guess it does come up quite a bit. There was some pictures previous with shiny paints and other like an eggshell or deep base colors where we do it, but internally we didn't have any real standards, and there was, figured out 3 different ways to do it, and we didn't really have any controls in place or on how we did it, and also our understanding of the QA QC process and managing expectations with their own people and the owners was all over the place. Too many variances in products, techniques. The products, there's actual spray on mud, like Aubrey said, you can buy from one manufacturer. There's box drywall compound you can buy. And it was all just personal preference, not necessarily based on a global science data perspective. We weren't all aligned with what an actual level 5 finish is. And I'll tell you, architects and owners sometimes, and a lot of times, struggle with what that is too. They think they're going to get glass, but it's still drywall. So we weren't aligned there. And it's an extra, it's an add-on, and we want to give the client what they're paying for, so it does deserve the special attention, and we put some work into it, and it was actually a pretty fun project with some interesting outcomes.
Awesome. So Ian and Calvin, you guys sort of took this on first. I've got a couple slides here of some of the research that you guys did. If you want to sort of walk us through sort of what you were looking at or what you were searching for.
Sure, I can jump in on. Oh,
yeah, go ahead, Ian.
All right. Yeah, I can jump in on this. I think, well, this kind of started from Calvin. You and I were doing 2 separate projects, and we both had a lot of level 5 finishes, and we had clients and certain expectations, and we had 3 different crews doing it 3 different ways. So I guess we started to dive in exactly what is level 5, what is the standard we're trying to achieve, and how do we achieve that? So essentially, like Aubrey was touching on earlier, all the level 5 does is it takes the surface and makes it uniform. So the mud is smooth, the drywall is rough. So we're going to take that transition from smooth smooth to rough away by skimming out or covering that drywall everywhere. What it doesn't do is, like Harley mentioned earlier, is turn it into a glass-like finish, because yes, it is still drywall. So we dove into a little bit on this to find out exactly what it is and what we're trying to achieve.
Okay. And so what kinds of associations or organizations did you guys look at for specifications? Or rather, did you get Marissa to research for you?
Well, we definitely leaned on our team a little bit for this, right? Because I know we've got good project coordinators and managers that spend a lot of time in paperwork, whereas we're,
For sure.
boots on the ground trying to push the job forward. So yeah, we definitely got some help on this, but I think the AWCA had some information for us, and I think we went through. What was that? Sarah, maybe you can help me out. We had our inspector that was coming into Central Drug.
Was that our MPI inspector?
All right, there we go. Our MPI
Yeah.
inspector also provided us with a lot of information, really helpful information on how to kind of guide our clients and ourselves on what is exactly is expected from the finish.
You know what, if I can jump in, that's interesting perspective. I think for this presentation too, MPI is Master Painters Institute. So that's a painting lens. So we're talking about drywall finishing, but we leaned on our next external/internal customer, who was the painter, for their expertise to help as well. So I think it gave us a different perspective, and it helped quite a bit.
Totally. I think that in looking at, this last slide and this one, so we've got CGC on the left here. That's one of the manufacturers of the level 5 product. ASTM is kind of a standard across North America, if I'm quoting that right, Harley. Yeah, okay. And then I think there's more manufacturer information, and then MPI, and you're correct. Like, this was a unique case in all of our continuous improvement work where we were cross-trade conversations. So it was the drywallers and the painters really working on making sure that that finish is the right finish. And we generally don't involve those teams together as much. So it was pretty cool for that. So site visits that we did, and so we're going back, I think 2 years now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aubrey, Calvin, Ian. Was it just Lewis Farms and Central Drug that we went to? I feel like there was a third.
I know Lewis.
Yeah.
Central
know.
for sure. I can only remember the two.
I might just be crazy and sick, but so Lewis Farms, Calvin on this call was the superintendent on that site. He had tapers using the roll applied method, and that was a school that had level 5 almost everywhere. Central Drug Production Facility was an interesting job too. Very heavy into steel, but as we got into finishing, it was also crazy. So Ian was a superintendent there, and he had 2 different taping crews using 2 different methods. So we looked at spray applied there as well as trowel applied. And you had level 5 in most areas, right? But there was still quite a bit of level 4.
Yeah, I think pretty much our mechanical ones were level 4, and that was it. It was really high finish everywhere else. We had
so mostly level 5. Yeah.
Mostly level 5. We had clean rooms with 2-part epoxy paint, and they had to be perfect surfaces, or near perfect as we could possibly get them with a level 5 finish.
If I can jump in, it's a drug processing facility with a tough consultant. And worth noting, and again, in this conversation, we're trying to achieve an outcome, and on the same site, in this same room, we're doing it 2 different ways. So.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a bit crazy. So our team that analyzed these 3 different ways of doing things were Aubrey, obviously, Alan, who is our residential taping supervisor. He's been taping about as long, if not longer, than Aubrey. Chris, who is our commercial paint supervisor. Myself, I was just along for the ride. Calvin and Ian. And then we involved also the tapers who were actually installing it. So as a team, we went to site. We watched the work. We spoke with those trades. We made note of all of the plus deltas that they were experiencing, that we were experiencing. We looked at the time actually to install and the cost based on what we'd experienced on past and those current projects. We did a deep dive into the application method, the tools used, the material used, the humans, and ultimately, obviously, what we were handing over to the painters and then to the end user. Oh, Lordy. So you guys did all of this hard work. Do you want to walk us through what we sort of figured out here? This was more application side of things. I think Ian, you initially wrote all of this out, to be honest.
Yep. No, that's fair. Yeah, so I think essentially when we started looking into this, some of the reasons that we were noticing different techniques is because some workers were more comfortable with one over the other. So then we started really seeing, okay, now what does it take to apply this? What does it take to apply this? And that's kind of how we started dissecting it. So the spray method, essentially you mix your mud, you run it through a high pressure sprayer like you would a paint sprayer with a certain nozzle. You spray it on the wall, and then another worker comes behind and trowels it flat, right? Roller is pretty much the same system where you're using a specific product meant to be rolled onto the wall with a pretty thick roller, and then you have another worker come behind and trowel it down. Now, the trowel method can be done by one person. It's essentially a hawk and trowel, where you trowel it left, trowel it up and down, and then you sand it down after, right?
For trowel, that was the only one that used a power sander too. That's because of the amount of product put on, right?
Yeah, I believe that was how it worked. Yes. Because
Aubrey,
it's
is that
thicker.
right? I feel like that's right.
Well, once again, we had different workers doing it differently. So the one guy that we had at the school, he didn't use the power sander, one of them, but the other crew did. And the one crew was doing the spray, and they would use the power sander. The hand trowel guy, he didn't. So it's kind of the mix again, how we had different crews doing it different ways. So those two kind of crossed a little bit over there, but
right.
For the most
But
part,
what we did,
it was.
Sorry, Aubrey. Well, what we did notice, even though some were power sanding and some weren't, we definitely dialed in what papers to use, the grits that we needed to use to be able to power sand without leaving marks, and and pole sand without leaving marks, right?
Right. Oh Lord. Sorry. So this is when we got into the matrix of kind of the analysis that we had done for each. So if you guys want to walk us through that, I can talk a bit about the gloss levels when we get there too.
Okay, here I'll go over it. So this is the breakdown that we went through once we analyzed all three different techniques. So you can see with the spray, you had to have somebody that knew how to operate the machine. It was really quick, didn't use that much material. The finish was good. It wasn't the best. And as far as expense, well, the machine on its own is about a $10,000 machine. So it was pretty expensive to do it that way. The gloss levels, I don't, but 2 to 4, Sarah, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so that's like an eggshell to maximum, like a high gloss. I would say actually closer to a semi-gloss, honestly. So it's okay for semi. Yeah, I wouldn't go high gloss. Sorry, correcting myself. My brain's messed. I wouldn't go higher than a semi-gloss using spray.
Okay. And then the rolling technique, you had to have somebody that knew what they're doing. They had to be experienced to get it on. It was a little bit slower than the spray. It didn't use nearly as much material.
It was like no material.
Yeah, it was barely used any once we worked out per square foot how much we're using on each of these steps. But the finish didn't turn out as well.
Mm.
It wasn't as good as the spray. And cost wise for the tools, well, the roller and trowel is pretty cheap compared to the $10,000 spray machine there. So
Yeah.
and then the troweling, you definitely need to have somebody that knows how to use the trowel knives properly. And we got the power sander in there too. That's another one. You can't just, if you go crazy with that sander, you just wreck everything you've done.
Mhm.
It took a lot longer than the other two techniques, and it used a lot of material per square foot also. But the finish turned out the best that we found. It was the highest finish that we had out of the three different techniques. And cost wise is a little more than the rolling technique, because the power sander is about $1,000 alone, and it just costs more than just a standard roller, but it did have the best finish out of all three.
Yeah, and that was the one that I would recommend for a really high gloss paint, because of that level of finish. The paint is gonna respond the best to it. So, after figuring out that metric, we kind of found out why we would choose one method over another, which was sort of surprising. It was not what we sort of intended. We've sort of expected to find one method that we just prefer over all the others, but within the three, they each had their own individual uses. So that was kind of interesting. So for spray applied, that's okay for semi-gloss, maybe high gloss. Obviously you have specialized experience, the equipment's really expensive, but there's a medium cost. So the focus in order to use a spray applied would be speed, because it was super fast to apply. So if the schedule is really crazy and we have a semi-gloss paint going on it, that would be the method that would be preferred. For a roller, that's for low sheen or mid sheen. So like an eggshell, maybe a semi-gloss. The tools are cheap, low experience, and low cost, and that would be the focus would be cost. So if we were working on a project where they really didn't want to put in a lot of money to level 5, but they do want it done, that's when we would go with the roller. And especially if it's really, really large areas, it's more cost effective to use a roller applied method. The trowel obviously was the best quality, right? So best for really high gloss. We need tapers who are really high skilled. They already have their tools, or maybe they need to upgrade, but this was the most expensive methodology. So again, yeah, the focus in using the trowel applied method would be in quality. Any thoughts on these things, you guys? This was your work. I'm just reading it out.
Well, I'd agree with the trowel on, like when we were in a area with a lot of glass and stuff, sunlight coming in, the trowel on seemed to be the best coverage.
Mhm.
The roll on, obviously, like you said, it was quicker and less expensive. And then the spray, we just found that a lot of product, and maybe even a little more mess, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I
did.
would.
Oh, go ahead, Ian.
Sorry. No, I said I would completely agree with this. Where we've got a really dark paint and a high light zone, right? That travel method is perfect. Roller, right? You need a level 5 finish, but let's say you're covering a lot of it up with architectural panels. There's no sense spending all the time and money to trowel on a finish when most of it's covered up afterwards anyways, right? And then obviously your spray is your volume, so you've got to hand over a lot of area, short amount of time, and that's how you do it.
Right. And some results that we came out of this. These are just some thoughts that I jotted down, but feel free, you guys, to jump in or say anything that you found. I thought what was really surprising about this whole exercise was, again, that there wasn't one clear, like, best method, but there was best methods to suit the paint gloss level. And that relationship with the painters I thought was really interesting. And seeing that, just because the standards are a certain way, nationally, And just because those methods are available doesn't mean that one is necessarily the best for what you're doing. Like without this experiment, we wouldn't have known. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So we wouldn't have known that, roller applied is best for big areas, or that trowel is the highest quality, right? So that was really surprising to me. When we were on site and actually looking at the work and talking to the workers, it felt very like fact finding for us. Like we didn't have a solution as the goal. The goal was to understand the process and the decision making behind it, the methodology that people were using, the tools, the grit of sandpaper, like Ian was saying. So that was a really cool way of looking at it, and it felt very lean centric, as opposed to just rushing in trying to find a way to fix the problem. We were really developing what the problem was, which was very cool. And surprising to me was that spraying the material usage was actually lower than using a trowel. That was wild to me. That matrix that we have, that kind of came out organically as we were accumulating data, which I thought was kind of cool. That was sort of Ian and Calvin getting all that data together and figuring out, what categories to even put these in. So that was really cool. And moving forward, so that metrics can help us estimate more accurately for our clients and what their actual needs are on site. And it helps us assign appropriate crews for the work. So if we've got guys that we know can spray, we're going to choose them for a job where we need to have spray applied, right? Or the opposite for trowel applied. And having these standards, like the actual application standards, what grit to use, what tool to use, what the quantity of mud should be, etc. That's just going to let us QC better and better supervise our installers. So any thoughts from you guys? This is my last slide. So it was your project. I'd love to hear more from you guys.
I'd like to pop into it. So somebody that's not a drywall finisher or painter, this might be really boring. But imagine, like I was kind of flipping through who's on the call here. I see some engineering. So imagine something that you do all the time, and you have 2 or 3 or 4 different people in your office, and they might do it a different way, but it's just always the way you've done it. But then you actually decide, wait, I think we can do this better, and you dig in and you start ripping apart this thing. And that's how this was for us. It was something that we've just done all the time, and it really brought it together. It really brought us confidence. The science in it was cool. The working together between our team members was awesome. Everything from application to tools to material management. I mean, as an owner here with those big eyebrows in that picture, I mean, there's a dollar figure attached too. So from a lean perspective, there was a lot of things we checked off, and one of the best ones too was just coming together as a team on it and learning together and feeling more confident in that and being able to do a better job. So.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, one thing I found surprising too was how we're able to dial in the amount of materials we're using, because we didn't really have any kind of way to track it. Just keep on loading pallets of material and let the guys go at it. We weren't actually tracking how much they were using. So once we went through all 3 different ways of doing this, we were able to break it down how much per square foot we're using on each different way. So it really worked out well for a cost analysis on material alone. So
yeah, and I believe there was another continuous improvement project that came out of this that was specifically taping material, wasn't it? I believe that was Jeff and Marissa.
Yeah, they did take it spiraled off from this, correct?
Yeah. Which is cool too. Like it's really neat seeing these kinds of projects spurn others, like we've done that a few times where something we'll be working on we realize there's another problem that deserves its whole other project, right? Whole other team trying to figure out what the problem is there. So yeah, it's really cool. Ian, Calvin, any thoughts, you guys?
Well, I think my biggest realization in this is, we try to standardize our processes a lot, right? A bunch of people doing things a bunch of different ways. Let's find the best way and work with that and focus on that and spread that amongst the team, right? And this one, our standard process is 3 different methods. So that was surprising. I didn't really see that coming until we started really diving into it and why we did each method, right? So I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, for me, pretty much the same thing. I mean, I'd never done a job where we tried 3 different methods like that. So it was pretty interesting. Most of the time you pick a method and you just do that through the whole job. But it was really interesting finding out a lot about it. So
Yeah. Interestingly too, like Harley was saying, sometimes we assume that when people are doing things differently from other people, it's just because that's how they were taught and they've never changed and they don't want to try anything new. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's that they legitimately think that that is the best method. And in this case, none of them were truly wrong. It was just maybe the setting that they were best for, right? So I thought that was really humbling in a way of seeing that, where we often judge people for doing things maybe in an antiquated or quote unquote old school way. Sometimes it works and sometimes it works the best. That trowel applied method is probably the oldest method of doing level 5, and it ends up being the highest quality. So anyway, it's really, really very interesting process, I think, for all of us. And I think like all of you guys were talking about, bringing our team together was huge, and across painters, tapers, like our next customer down the line, being a part of the decision making on what they get delivered is very cool. That's kind of all we've got for presentation of L.
Awesome. So yeah, I did not know there was so much that went into about taping, and I've been working with you guys for a while now. And I've been doing level 1 taping in my little home renos this entire time, and I thought that was the bomb. But from your guys' presentation, I like the reminder that not everyone is aligned on what the best is, and even internally on how to deliver what the best is. And it was great to hear you guys present on how that the go slow to go fast, and take the time to collaborate on what level 5 means, and including an internal customer across the trade on what would that be and what the best is, because it's not just the external customer who who's going to be living in the house or using the building, but the people who are going to be painting on top of that as well too, right? Bringing in the MPI and whatnot. And like Harley said, this happens in all processes. We assume something, and we go through these trials and tribulations, and then we try this kind of stuff out. And and again, when you assume, you typically get it wrong. So I like the fact that you guys took the time, reach across, because that's terrifying, because they can come back and say something entirely different, and then you're kind of stuck to it, right? So kudos to you and the team. So we are into the question and answer portion of it. So if you guys have a question or whatnot, use the raise hand feature, or post in the chat, or if you want to comment or whatnot. Don't forget, when we call you up, to unmute yourself, or turn your camera on if you like. But I'm just kind of curious, does anyone have any questions for the team? And we can go from here. So I do have one question. So you decided to use the trowel method, right? Was there like specific type of trowel that you guys use? I saw a lot of different tools there. Is that something that you can just get at Home Depot, or do you have to like specially buy it?
For the most part, they're just bigger blades, so a bigger trowel. Maybe they go a 20-inch or a bigger knife. There are some specialty blades, like in the one picture they're showing, that you'd have to go to an actual drywall store to get, but you can get a lot of those tools at Home Depot.
So like you said, 20 inches, so bigger is necessarily better then?
They cover more ground quicker with them, and it does you don't get as many lap marks to sand out when you use the bigger ones. So
Oh,
if you use
cool.
a smaller one, you get more lines that you got to sand out, so it makes it easier to do the final sand with the bigger blade.
I would say, Avel, as you were saying, you do level 1 taping at home. I would definitely not recommend you run out and buy a trowel and start attempting level 5 in your home. Please call us.
Well, I mean, like I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So, again, any other questions from the group? Comments, particulars? Shafraz has his hand up. Go for Shafraz.
Yeah, just wanted to see how you might have inspired the painter to take up Lean or learn some new tricks, or how does this whole Lean thinking influence other people around you and not just your team, which is awesome. And I really appreciate the whole scientific method of testing and experimenting. So well done.
That's a good question. Harley, you want to answer that one?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. We're a fair-sized company and we have different departments who do different things. So it's a good question, Shiraz, because we brought in our painter, and these exercises are always an exercise of vulnerability as well, where we got to be open with each other about what we're doing, how we're doing it, what the end product is, and I mean that's the experimenting, the science of Lean is one thing, but the people part is another. So it was great bringing our different departments together, bringing our the painter in, showing them that we care about what we're doing. I think it was a very positive effect about it, just the openness and continuous improvement. So I thought it was great.
I would add, a year, 2 years, whatever it is later. I'd love for you, Harley, to explain a little bit more about how our paint team has been doing more Lean work with Drywall.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Sarah. And this exercise was part of that, where we wanted to bring our painters into the Lean practice some more. And it was actually in our training at Bell had suggested it, and we started doing some A3s and some projects together with drywallers and painters. This was one of them, but it really brought them together. A drywaller and painter, if you're on site, that's the two most. It's like match and gasoline.
Oil, water.
Oil, water. So bringing them together and doing Lean projects and trying to find improvements was something, and it brought our teams a little bit more together, and the understanding of each other's scopes and stresses and what everybody went through. So yeah, I think it had a really big impact on our Lean culture.
Mhm.
Definitely.
So did you guys get so good at level 5 that you can do it for 30% cheaper than anyone else in the business, or 30% faster?
I would
Depends on the
say,
method we use.
yeah. And maybe neither, but we're doing it the way we should be doing it, with some confidence and giving a great product, where before maybe we made money on it, but it wasn't the exact product we should have gave, or maybe it was way the other way and we blew mud all over the place and all over the floor and everything else, and from a Lean lens that come out from that, like cleanup costs, upset clients, this and that. So
Yeah.
I would say now we're just a little bit better at it.
And I guess another factor there too is that we sometimes in the past have ignored the cost implications for the painters who are next down the line. But when we're talking about a finish that has to be a certain way for certain gloss levels. If it doesn't look good with that gloss level, we're repainting over and over and over again. So there are downstream costs to that, just like Harley said too, like the cleanup costs, etc., like reputational costs that are almost impossible to quantify. Those are all very, very real. And especially with a level 5 that's supposed to be, like we were talking about earlier, an add-on. It's supposed to be the best of the best. If we're not doing that right, reputationally, it's kind of suicide, right? So yeah. Are there cost savings? Sure. Have we measured those? No.
I'm just curious, when you guys went through this, have you done this something similar to this collaborative effort about, different areas or different ways how we can do something, deliver it to an internal or external client or a customer? Have you done this in other places besides level 5?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I thought Harley was going to jump in. Oh yeah. Yeah, those couple of paint and drywall projects that we did last year were huge. One was focused on return trips for painters coming back and redoing, as well as tapers coming back and redoing things, not deficiency related, but trade damage related. The return trips that we were doing was massive, and we've had some huge improvements on that. And sorry, I've got sick person brain fog. Harley, do you remember what the other one was?
I think it was about sequencing.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, and they came up with some really cool solutions too, some countermeasures that were pretty rad. So yeah. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry. I'm fading here pretty quick.
No worries. So on that note, are there any other questions from the group, or do we let these guys off the hook?
We get some level 5 to apply.
Yeah.
I'll just throw that out there. I seen that there's some good comments there. I think it's, if I'm pronouncing it right, Jason, I'm going to share with the team. If everybody's sharing this with their team or watching this, and you're like, challenge your own processes or something you might do internally, and dig in a little bit and grab a couple team members. And I would almost guarantee that you're going to come out with something a little better, and you're going to have a little fun in the meantime. So.
Awesome. One raised hand is Brian McEachern. Brian, if you want to ask your question.
Sure. I always, whenever I saw level 5 on any of my projects, I would always ask why they were asking for it. How often do you get it from like a waste perspective, an overproduction kind of perspective? How often do you get into conversations about, it says that they're asking for level 5 in the spec, but is it really a requirement, really value? Like, is that a common conversation that happens?
I'll jump in on this one. It's not common, but the one we tested here, Central, where Ian was, there was a lot of places where it wasn't exposed and wasn't needed, but the consultant wanted it, and that was it. We offered a credit, and they just weren't interested. Where alternatively, I would say it's not so much the conversation and not needing level 5, like having the level 5, but having a conversation about you don't need it. It's the opposite. We have a level 4. There's lots of light. There's a shiny paint. Please take this fairly reasonable extra for a level 5, and people won't do it. And then everybody's arguing. We're at the end of it. We're arguing. You're arguing with your client. Nobody understands what they paid or didn't pay for. So I would say it's more on, we don't see it enough where it should be. So
cool. Thanks.
Awesome. So on that note, I put some links in there if you guys want to follow our LinkedIn page, so you can get up to date for new and upcoming events that we're going to be having, so presentations. And as well too, we post all of our videos on our YouTube page. So again, I put the link in the chat there for our YouTube page where we can have these videos, and this one will be coming up soon as well too. And on that note, thank you, Ideal Contract Services, for sharing and teaching us about level 5 painting. And again, thank you to the community for joining in on us. and being a part of sharing this. Spread the word. Again, Edmonton is a really awesome place for sharing good and better ways of how to do our work and how to approach our work. On that note, bye everyone, and we'll see you guys in 1 month.
Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Well done.